I was in a really great mood until about 15 minutes ago when I settled in and Dwayne brings to my attention that Major League Baseball has placed Emmanuel Clase on administrative leave. That is until the end of August, in connection with the ongoing betting probe that has already snared Luis Ortiz, who's a Guardian. Now, I expected betting to hit all the professional sports. It's too big. It's too immediate. You can bet on too many things. The money is just so huge. So I expected eventually player after player would succumb. But I also thought that players would be smart enough to realize, especially pitchers. Pitchers are smart. You might not be the world's smartest guy if you're the DH, but if you're a pitcher or a catcher, you're going to be smart. And I did not expect the big scandal to begin with the Guardians. And they're 7.5 games behind the Tigers. It's not really their year. Could be their year. But I'm beginning with this story only to illustrate gambling corrupts everything it touches. I stay off my puritanical horse a lot, but gambling is no good for anyone ever. I pointed out to my boys when they were young that I took them to Las Vegas, took them to the Hoover Dam, and pointed out everything in Las Vegas is built by people who drive here and leave their money here. They don't really make anything in Las Vegas. They just allow you to gamble here. And all that you see, all the pyramids and the giant buildings and the circus and everything on the Strip, plus everything else, all the home, everything is paid by people who come from the other 49 and around the world to Nevada in the old days and just leave their money here. And they don't win. You can't win. Casinos aren't in the business of losing money. They're in the business of making a lot of money, and they do make a lot of money because people like to think they're going to be luckier than the next person or they're better than the next person, and they can't and they won't, and it won't work. So it's gotten enormous, giant. And now two players on the club I root for, Clase and Ortiz, are gone for the year. The end of August. They would not suspend a baseball player for a month, and Ortiz's case is going to be 2 months, unless they had some idea of guilt, that no one's guilty until proven guilty in the criminal courts, but the Major League Baseball doesn't have to do that. Major League Baseball just gets rid of you and says, see you later. It's a lifetime suspension, by the way. You gamble, especially the allegation lurking around about Ortiz, it's an allegation, is that he dumped 2 pitches, purposely threw really wild pitches in 2 innings. Now, that sounds like shoeless Joe Jackson. And that Clase is now caught up in it, tells me that Ortiz has said something about Clase after a drill down, which I assume was with lawyers, and he's trying to get himself some better kind of deal. There's only one deal, lifetime suspension. And the best I can hope for here is that Ortiz made something up and Clase is not good at it. Now, Clase is the best reliever in American League, probably in both leagues, and lights out. Now, the Guardians aren't doomed. They got Cade Smith. They have Hunter Gaddis. They got a setup man. They got a closer. It's not the end of the club, but it's really indicative of what the world is like. Now, let me go to what was going to be my major story until Dwayne cheerfully told me that when I came into the studio, because he hates the Guardians because they're so much better than the Angels. Donald Trump won again. He won again. And if anyone is out there trying to deny that he won again with this massive tariff deal with Europe, have them read the Financial Times. I think it's the world's greatest newspaper, and I subscribe to it. And the Wall Street Journal, nothing else for newspapers. I got news items from John Ellis, of course. And the deal was announced yesterday. Europe's going to pay 15% on everything, and a couple of carve-outs, a couple of tiny carve-outs, and a lot higher on the tariffs on steel, a couple other things. But basically 15%. Everything that Europe wants to send us, they're going to pay 15%. The reaction I'm going to spend a lot of time on this today so you understand it. All you need to know is that headline number one from the Financial Times, Germany and France hit out at EU-US deal. Euro slides as investors bet that long-awaited trade agreement will hurt the Eurozone economy. And it's about both leaders of Germany and France are really angry with the head of the EU who struck this deal. The second story is even better. How the EU succumbed to Trump's tariff steamroller. In the face of Donald Trump's trade blitz, the Times writes, the EU began its path to capitulation on April the 10th. If you've gone to capitulation, the other team won. And that means Trump won, which means the United States won. What did we win? Well, let's give a listen. Here is President Trump at his golf course in Scotland, Turnberry, with EU President Ursula von der Leyen. Cut number 3.
So we're going to do the following. The European Union is going to agree to purchase from the United States $750 billion worth of energy. $750 billion worth of energy. They are going to agree to invest into the United States $600 billion more than they're investing already. So they're investing a large amount of money. You know what that amount of money is. It's very substantial, but they're going to invest an additional $600 billion. They're agreeing to open up their countries to trade at zero tariff. So that's a very big factor. Opening up their countries, all of the countries will be opened up to trade with the United States at zero tariff. And they're agreeing to purchase a vast amount of military equipment. We don't know what that number is, but it's the good news is we make the best military equipment in the world, so sort of you have to do that. I mean, until somebody tops us, which is not going to happen. We're way ahead of every other country in terms of the quality of the military equipment. You saw that recently in Iran, and you see that, unfortunately, you see that often for all the wrong reasons, right? So those things are $750 billion, $600 billion, opening up the country. We are agreeing that the tariff straight across for automobiles and everything else will be a straight across tariff of 15%.
Let's stop right there. It's just a straight across win for Donald Trump. And it will produce a lot of revenue for the American Treasury because Europe's got to sell into us. I didn't think it was possible to get this. Donald Trump went on to say this, cut number 4.
Cars basically were not invited. Were not, I don't know if the word is not allowed or just, you just kept them out somehow, right? But cars will be, we have some cars that do terrific business and we do really well with the pickup trucks, with the SUVs. We have some great things. And I think the people of Europe will have some diversification. I think that'll make them happy. So I think maybe cars would be the one that would go the biggest. And the second would be agriculture, the farmers. And we'll do it in very strict conjunction with the president and the European Union. And they're
we'll go to poor Ursula von der Leyen sitting there capitulating, and she says this, cut number 6.
Anybody else? Yes, ma'am.
I have a question for the EU Commission President. What are the U.S. concessions? What is the U.S. giving up in the deal, if anything?
So the starting point was an imbalance, a surplus on our side and a deficit on the U.S. side. And we wanted to rebalance the trade relation. And we wanted to do it in a way that trade goes on between the two of us across the Atlantic, because the two biggest economies should have a good trade flow between us. And I think we hit exactly the point we wanted to find. Rebalance, but enable trade on both sides, which means good jobs on both sides of the Atlantic, means prosperity on both sides of the Atlantic, and that was important for us.
That what was important for us, Americans, is that Europe finally let our goods in, and they're going to pay us 15% from what they are subsidizing and sending here. I just think it's incredible. I'll talk with Noah Rothman about it on the other side of the break. There is one fly in the ointment. Does the president have the authority to do this? We'll find out from the court soon. Olivia Beavers is with the Wall Street Journal. She joins us live from Washington, D.C. Olivia, how are you on this hot Monday? Is it nasty inside the Beltway?
You don't even want to know. It's actually not that bad because you can step out for at least 10 seconds without being dripping. But the past few weeks, it's been like you step out and it's right away. There's a few people who have moved here from California that I talked to recently, and they looked around and said, "Is it always this bad?" And you know, if you know DC, yes, it is always this bad.
That's why I'm not there. That's why I go
smarter than
elsewhere.
I am.
And it's also why almost always both houses of Congress are gone by the last week in July through the end of August, and they do their work at home, and they go and they see everyone. They explain the one big beautiful bill. The House has left, but the Senate hasn't left. Why?
Well, they have some work to do, but I think also Majority Leader John Thune is threatening to at least take the weekend, if not add additional days at President Trump's urging to get things done. So they're trying to get an appropriations minibus, as we like to call it, package done this week. They're projecting confidence that they might be able to get that done, depending on what Democrats do, if they do some delay tactics, but they're also trying to get through a tranche of nominations that President Trump wants to be confirmed and put into place so that his administration can keep moving forward with things. So like even this week, you have Samuel Brown, who is nominated to be the Undersecretary of Veteran Affairs for Memorial Affairs. These are usually like sort of second or lower tier nominations, but that's some that they're working on in addition to ambassadorships.
Now, Ambassador designate Michael Waltz for the United Nations. He's the only national security appointee of whom I am aware who has not moved through. Is he scheduled for a vote before they leave?
I don't know that it's on the calendar, but I can get back to you on that.
Okay. Now, one thing that they often will do when there's a nominations logjam, this works both ways, is the majority party leader, who's being jammed by the minority or the party with the White House, walks over to the other side and says, I'll tell you what, let's do a deal. You give me X and we can go home. Is that in the works?
There are discussions being had, but I think some Democrats feel like there's not a huge incentive to help the Trump administration move forward with these nominations. So that's why you see Thune threatening to basically carve out additional parts of recess and have his senators stay in order to get these nominations done. So I think he's trying to use that as leverage with Democrats, which may or may not work. We're still seeing how those discussions are playing out. But I think it's fair to say neither Democrats or Republicans really want to be here. There's, maybe a Republican or two who says, sure, let's stay throughout recess, but this is sort of their time to go back and campaign, fundraise, if not be with their families or do some official government travel during this time. So no one really wants to be cutting short that time, as you said, to get away from DC.
There's only one endangered incumbent in the fall of 2026. That is Senator Susan Collins of Maine. And it's a 2-hour flight. You can go back and forth as needed, as necessary. But tell me about Texas Senator Cornyn. He was facing a more difficult struggle, but Paxton, the Attorney General of Texas, has run into a series of terrible stories about him and his personal life and a variety of things. I don't know that John Cornyn is in as much danger as he was. What about Senator Cornyn? Do you see him around the Senate?
I think it all depends. It's a little bit early to talk about that. And some of the Republicans I talked to from Texas are waiting to see. They're waiting to see what it looks like after August. If Cornyn can turn things around, improve his polling numbers in the primary, then I think that there's a feeling like, okay, he's our guy. But Wesley Hunt's looking potentially to do it, to jump into the race. So is Ronnie Jackson. So there are a few who think that if Cornyn cannot pull in better poll numbers and Paxton's looking like he might win the primary, you might see this become even more crowded.
Well, interesting. That wouldn't hurt Senator Cornyn either. My immediate take is the more the merrier if you're an incumbent with great positive ID within your party and you're worrying about a challenge. You'd rather have more challengers than a few. Any reaction to the EU deal, Olivia, because it was so unexpected that it happened so quickly, and it's such a decisive win for Trump. I'm reading the European press, and it's all woe is us in the EU. What's the word on the hill?
I think Republicans are pretty happy about it. They're saying this is, the normal lauding of him saying, oh, he's really good at deal making, but there is still some anxiety about whether the markets might have broader impacts down the line in terms of cost of goods and inflation. And we have seen the administration punt their tariff deadlines repeatedly with different countries. August 1st is a big one to watch in terms of the deadlines for a variety of different countries. So that's, I think, we're going to also see a broader spectrum of what is happening with the tariff negotiations with multiple different countries at this point.
Olivia Beavers of the Wall Street Journal, thank you for following me. Follow Olivia on X at Olivia_Beavers. Time for me to take my relief factor, and I need it. Grandkids are up here, and as a result, I'm limping already. Literally, one day. They rolled in yesterday. I'm limping already. Why is that? I don't know. Why does the hamstring hurt? I don't know. Probably a boat ride. Not sure. But I got my relief factor right here, and I take it in the first hour every day. You watch on the Salem News Channel. You can hear me on the radio. And I'll tell you what. It works. And if I have to double down, I'll double down. I actually have never hurt my hamstring before, and I've been a runner, trundler since I was 20. So that's a lot of miles over a lot of years. I've never, ever hurt the hamstring before. And the fetching Mrs. Hewitt says, well, don't pick up the 3-year-old so much. To which I respond, yeah, that's not going to happen because 3-year-olds are 3-year-olds. Now, our 3-year-old is 45 pounds, solid 45 pounds, bruiser. And that might, in fact, be the case. But, I may linger at the studio. I may get to the studio earlier, and I may stay longer. But you get your relief factor. 1-800, the number 4 and the word relief. 1-800, the number 4 and the word relief. Or go to their website and look for the starter pack at $19.95, less than $1 a day at relieffactor.com, relieffactor.com. I want to turn now. We continue to raise money in partnership with our sponsor, Food for the Poor, for those who've been devastated in Texas. The Texas flooding, they just recovered another body yesterday. The death toll's up to 136. The complaints about FEMA are mounting because aid is not getting there. Again, the death toll is so extraordinary, 136 people dead in that terrible storm of a few weeks back. But that storm and the flood wiped away many, many other lives and homes and things, and FEMA's just not up to speed. It's just the classic FEMA thing. The good news, Food for the Poor is on the ground, but it's just been really tough. Here's Texas. Well, I'll tell you, I'll play that for you later. In the meantime, head to HughHewitt.com, hit the Help Texas button. Help Texas is at the top, or call 855-359-4673. 855-359-4673. That's 855-359-4673. Or go to the Help Texas button on the top of HughHewitt.com. I got a brand new sponsor this week, WebRoot. WebRoot. What do you think that's about? What do you think it is? It is, of course, the essential protection you need to stop phishing, scams, malware, everything online. It's also got the number of things it's got: password manager, system optimizer, identity protection with advanced dark web monitoring, rapid credit alert. They got $1 million policy on every one of their customers. Do you know that identity theft happens every 1 or 2 seconds in America? because there's a lot of money to be made. I was explaining to someone just this week that title fraud, I do not have a title fraud advertiser, but I was talking to Andrew Del Rey about it. And Andrew, of course, advertises Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, but not today. And that's not what I'm telling you about him. He's telling me about fraud on paid-off homes of people who've been in their home for 30 years. The dark underworld that the internet has unleashed upon all of us requires you to treat your internet connections the same way you treat your home. Put some locks in place. Get some safety in mind and take it seriously. Webroot wants you to use them. And so they're giving you 50% off if you go to webroot.com/Hewitt. Webroot.com/Hewitt. It installs rapidly, 6 times faster than its closest competitor. So you just download Webroot and you're safe. And you can get, there are 2 different packages. You can get Webroot Total Protection or Webroot Essentials. The 50% deal applies to either of them. But to investigate what it costs, whether it's for you, you don't want your identity thrown. I'm going to be mentioning it every day going forward. Webroot.com/Hewitt. Webroot.com/Hewitt. Now, Donald Trump gave 2 press conferences today. I've already played for you excerpts of yesterday's presser with the head of the EU. He's in Great Britain. He's in the United Kingdom, in Scotland at his golf course. And so Keir Starmer went to see him, and they talked about a lot of different things. I'll cover it throughout the entire show. But Dr. Michael Oren is coming up after the break. So I want to play for you the cut that he had to say about people need to be fed. Cut number 10.
The Prime Minister says that recognising the Palestinian state would be a concrete step towards a lasting peace. Do you agree with his position?
Well, I'm not going to take a position. I don't mind him taking a position. I'm looking for getting people fed right now. To me, that's the number 1 position, because you have a lot of starving people. You have people that, the United States recently, just a couple of weeks ago, we gave $60 million. It's a lot of money. No other nation gave money. I know the Prime Minister would if he knew about it, and he really knows about it now because we're going to be discussing it. But we gave $60 million. Nobody said even thank you. Thanks. Somebody should say thank you. But other nations are going to have to step up. When I spoke to Ursula yesterday, she said that the European nations are going to step up very substantially too.
I do like the bagpipe in the background. I will play that for Dr. Michael Oren when we get back, and you can hear some more. In the meantime, he also served notice to Putin that originally Putin had 50 or 60 days to figure out whether or not he wanted additional sanctions. That changed today. Cut number 8.
I would have said 5 times we would have had a deal. I've spoken to President Putin a lot. I got along with him very well. But 5 times, and every time 4 times maybe, but we've had discussions. You and I have had discussions. Yeah. We thought we had that settled numerous times. And then President Putin goes out and starts launching rockets into some city like Kiev and kills a lot of people in a nursing home or whatever. You have bodies lying all over the street. And I say, that's not the way to do it. So we'll see what happens with that. I'm very disappointed. I'm disappointed in President Putin. Very disappointed in him. So we're going to have to look, and I'm going to reduce that 50 days that I gave him to a lesser number because I think I already know the answer what's going to happen.
And he went on to say this, cut number 17.
I'm going to make a new deadline of about 10 or 12 days from today. There's no reason in waiting. There's no reason in waiting. It's 50 days. I want to be generous, but we just don't see any progress being made.
And he also added this about Epstein, cut number 20.
Can you settle that? What was it about? What caused the breach?
That's such old history. Very easy to explain, but I don't want to waste your time by explaining it. But for years, I wouldn't talk to Jeffrey Epstein. I wouldn't talk because he did something that was inappropriate. He hired help. And I said, don't ever do that again. He stole people that worked for him. I said, don't ever do that again. He did it again. and I threw him out of
The president is not worried about Joseph Epstein. Dr. Michael Oren, historian extraordinaire, also former Israeli ambassador to the United States, is outside in Israel tonight, not in his studio. I hope no alarms go off. Good day to you, Dr. Oren. Israel was the subject of a Q&A with President Trump today, or Gaza to be specific, in England. Let's hear what he had to say, cut number 10.
The Prime Minister says that recognising the Palestinian state would be a concrete step towards a lasting peace. Do you agree with his position?
Well, I'm not going to take a position. I don't mind him taking a position. I'm looking for getting people fed right now. To me, that's the number one position, because you have a lot of starving people. You have people that, the United States recently, just a couple of weeks ago, we gave $60 million. It's a lot of money. No other nation gave money. I know the Prime Minister would if he knew about it, and he really knows about it.
So, Dr. Oren, I don't think there's a famine in Gaza. I don't think it's a good idea to recognize a Palestinian state. But what about the mounting chorus internationally that there is famine and genocide underway?
Well, here's the bottom line, Hugh. And I've been in this business for a long time explaining Israel to the world. I've never encountered a situation like this in my entire life, in my career. Where I agree with you. I don't think there's a famine in Gaza. I think that we've been able to show that the starving children they've shown in various media forums are children who are suffering from serious diseases, who they put up in front of the camera and say they're suffering, they're starving. And as someone who's also an historian, and I've been researching this war since the beginning, I'll tell you that on October 8th, 2023, the BBC, on October 9th, CNN, on October 12th, the New York Times, 2023, all reported that there was starvation in Gaza. Okay, this is not new. This is as old as it comes. But having said all that, we are now facing a reality. And the reality is that the world believes there's starvation in Gaza. The world believes, half the world certainly believes, that we're committing genocide. And we can't ignore that. We just cannot ignore that. Because it's about survival of this country. It's about giving time and space for our army to defend this country. And if the world is coming down on us, and if the Europeans are even threatening to sanction us, and I believe that's what's coming down the pipe, we have to address it. And so the Israeli government made a truly brutal decision, a grueling decision for itself to begin to airlift supplies into Gaza. And and I know that those supplies are going right into the coffers of Hamas. They're going to take it, they're going to feed their own terrorists, and they're going to sell what they don't eat at exorbitant prices, and they will enrich themselves. So at the end of the day, Hamas has succeeded. It succeeded in convincing the world that we're war criminals. Okay. But at the end of the day, who pays the price? It's not Israelis. It's first and foremost the Palestinians themselves. And these Europeans who are now accusing us of starving Palestinians, who are accusing us of genocide, they think they're doing something good for the Palestinians. They are the people who are killing Palestinians.
So, Dr. Oren, also a story in the Times of Israel at this hour. In First, two major Israeli human rights groups accuse Israel of genocide in Gaza. The first paragraph, B'Tselem, B''Tselen, and Physicians for Human Rights on Monday published a report accusing Israel of genocide in Gaza, becoming the first major Israeli human rights organization to join a list of international groups making the charge. I've never heard of either of these groups. I think it's ridiculous because you're the equal of anyone in the world, your country, at almost everything. So if you wanted to genocide, you could genocide. You're not. And I think population has gone up. But tell me, who are these groups and what are they doing?
B'Tselem and the Physicians for Human Rights are extreme leftist organizations. Extreme leftist organizations, anti-Zionist organizations. I know them quite well. And and so they say they were guilty of genocide. That doesn't make us guilty of genocide. And I don't see Israel lining up Palestinians and putting them in gas chambers anywhere. That's what genocide is. This is part of a global effort to delegitimize Israel, to create a situation where we will not be able to defend ourselves. B'Tselem doesn't want us to exist. The physicians don't want us to exist. How do you get us not to exist? By creating a situation where we can't defend ourselves. And this Hamas...
I never heard of them. That's enough. I think it's an idiotic statement that Israel's committing genocide. They're just not. The civilian to combatant ratio is less than 1 to 1 to 1. That means less than one civilian is being killed for every terrorist, and that has never been achieved or combatant ever achieved in the history of warfare. It's absurd. It's an absurd statement. What is going to happen, though? I hear the president, Trump, repeatedly hint Israel's got to finish the job. At the same time, he says we know where the hostages are and we've got to be very careful. What is the dilemma? What's Netanyahu going to do?
It's always the same dilemma. This is the same army, Hugh, that defeated Hezbollah in Lebanon. Hezbollah, who everybody in the world said we couldn't defeat. This is the same army that took on Iran over 12 days and won an historic military victory. If the Israeli army wanted to, if it could, it would take Gaza over in a single afternoon. Why can't it? Because there are hundreds of thousands of civilians there, and the Israeli army cannot kill those civilians, and there are 20 living hostages there, and Israeli army cannot kill those hostages. That is the only reason. It's not a military question. It's a moral question. It's a moral and diplomatic and strategic issue. And we can't do that. Maybe somebody else can do that. Now, President Trump said the other day, that Israel has to make a decision. I know what I would decide, but I'm not going to say it, he said. And I don't know what, I've been asked by the Israeli press over and over again, well, what would he decide? Well, I think there's a decision that would go with Mr. Witkoff, which is to go to a ceasefire. But there's also a decision to go with Ambassador Huckabee, who I think would want to conclude the battle against Hamas. I don't want to put words in his mouth, and is much more forceful on this. So we don't know. What we do know is that we deeply, deeply appreciate the support of President Trump at a time when almost all the nations of the West are abandoning the fight against Islamic terror and coming down on the side of Hamas. And I think it's a tragedy of historic proportions.
30 seconds, Michael Oren. Do you see any signs that bring the battle to a close is on the top of the list now?
Well, I think it's with the United States and Israel have agreed on the terms of a ceasefire. Hamas has walked away. It's obvious why Hamas has run away, because it's winning. It's winning the international battle. Why should Hamas make a compromise in Gaza when the entire world is accusing Israel of genocide and war crimes? It's exactly what Hamas wants. And everyone's played that game. And they think they're doing Palestinians a favor. They're not. They're complicit in the massacre of Palestinians with Hamas.
Dr. Michael Oren, always good to talk to you. Thank you for joining me today. Follow him on X at Dr. Michael Oren, Dr. Michael Oren. Thank you, Mr. Ambassador. One of my sponsors is Americans for a Balanced Budget. Who can't be for that? Tariffs are going to make their way towards that, by the way. I was interested. Howard Lutnick said yesterday it's going to be $70 billion a year in tariffs. That's quite a lot of money. I think maybe $700 billion a year in tariffs. A lot of money coming. It can be repurposed any way you want. I hope it goes to defense. We'll see. But Americans for a Balanced Budget are zeroed in on one thing. They haven't left town. I'm talking to Olivia Beavers earlier. Washington empties out of people beginning this week through the end of August because it's miserable. It's not leaving our Americans for a Balanced Budget. And the reason is spelled out over at StopHealthCostHikes.com. StopHealthCostHikes.com. They really are focused on the 24 million Americans who receive tax credits because they've been forced into the Obamacare state exchanges and have been for more than a decade. And those tax credits make their ridiculously expensive Obamacare insurance more affordable. And if those tax credits go away, they're going to get stuck with the bill. And so Americans for a Balanced Budget have opened up the website. If you're on the exchanges, you definitely ought to be at StopHealthCostHikes.com. It's all single and to the last. StopHealthCostHikes, plural.com. StopHealthCostHikes.com. Go there if you're one of the 24 million people who are on the Obamacare exchanges and join the battle to preserve what ought to have been in the reconciliation but did not get into the reconciliation because Democrats refused to play, and that is, and some Republicans don't like the idea of, because they hate Obamacare, they don't want to give any tax credits for it, but I'm concerned about the 24 million people. I okayed this sponsor, and they are looking for assistance for people screwed by Obamacare. The people on the healthcare exchanges, tax credits, extend them. Head over to StopHealthCostHikes.com. Finally, you know what this is. That's my orange and brown cell phone. And my orange and brown cell phone is orange and brown because I'm a Browns fan. But I'm not a fan of Big Cellular. Big Cellular sold me, they probably sold you a plan you don't need with too much data at too high of a cost. That's why consumercellular.com exists, and that's why you should go to consumercellular.com/Hugh. consumercellular.com/Hugh. What will you find there? You will find there the best rates, no matter what your situation is. But if you're over 50, the best deal you can do if you want unlimited data is with consumercellular.com/Hugh. If you use my code Hugh25, by the way, you'll get $5 off each of your first 5 months. But you probably will be mostly blown away by how inexpensive it is. 2 lines. Keep your numbers, keep your data, keep your contacts, keep it all, keep your devices, or get an upgrade, get a new device. But do it with consumercellular.com/Hugh, or head to the Consumer Cellular phone number, 1-800-411-4454, 1-800-411-4454, and use Hugh25, Hugh25, consumercellular.com/Hugh, or 1-800-411-4454, and use the code Hugh25. Wherever you are in the country, you're probably warm, but not as hot as talk about tariffs. Now, I've never been a fan of tariffs. I am not a fan of trade barriers, but I do believe that a great deal of non-tariff trade obstacles were put in the way in the United States over the course of 30 years. I also think we got sucked into a couple of one-sided deals. So what Donald Trump has been about in the first 6 months of his presidency is rebalancing trade. And over the weekend, when he struck the deal with the EU, I just sat back. I will talk with Senator Tom Cotton after the break about what he thinks. Reaganites were all free traders. We believed in the general agreement on trade and tariffs. We believed in getting down to zero. I was a supporter of NAFTA, but I am astonished. So I was waiting today to find out what was the market response to this deal with Europe. Because it's so one-sided. It's all very pro-American. America won, going away. I think if you weren't listening the first hour, the 2 headlines from the Financial Times, a paper that is published out of Great Britain and really covers the world, but it's very Eurocentric. Headline number 1, Germany and France hit out at EU-US deal. Euro slides as investors bet that the long-awaited trade agreement will hurt the Eurozone economy. And then story number 2, Trump tariffs, how the EU succumbed to Trump's tariff steamroller. And so if you got steamrolled, you didn't win. We did. America did. What did we win? Well, I went to the market today, and the market report is always brought to you by American Federal and AmericanFederal.com, 800-221-7694. That's 1-800-221-7694, or AmericanFederal.com. Had a friend go and do a lot of business with Nick Grovich over the last few weeks and loved him like I did. And American Federal buys and sells gold. My friend also happened to have a coin collection that had been left to him and wanted to unload that. Not a coin collector himself. Did it with Nick, knowing, as I do, that Nick can be trusted, is very, very transparent. What you see is what you get. And you call him up and he'll say, okay, let's start with the market price of gold. The market price today at this hour, and changes every hour, is $3,316.60. Why does it change every hour? Because it's traded around the world. It's the international currency. Dollar is the international currency, that's the backup currency, but gold is world history's currency. It's always been there. It's always going to be there. And its value fluctuates by the minute. Right now, it's $3,316.60 an ounce. The reason you buy gold is as a hedge against inflation and instability. So today it's down. So it's down. That's as low as I've seen it in weeks, $3,316 an ounce. If you were waiting for the dip, this might be it. I don't know. A lot of people buy gold or don't buy gold for a lot of reasons. One of them might be because everybody takes this week, which becomes August, and then all of August off. I think it's because there isn't going to be a trade war. There isn't going to be a meltdown in the markets. There isn't going to be any of that because the EU capitulated. That's the term the Financial Times used, capitulated to Donald Trump's demands. And it's going to be very good for the American economy. But what did the market do? Remember, the market report is brought to you by American Federal, but I always give you the market report after the market closes. The Dow went down 0.14%. That's essentially unchanged. The S&P went up 0.02%. That's essentially unchanged. The Nasdaq, which is technology heavy, went up 0.33%, 0.33. That's actually a significant little move up because they love what they see in that deal if you're a tech company or a defense contractor. An American defense contractor, not a European defense contractor. American defense contractors love what they see in that deal and went up 0.33% today. But gold went down. So markets are mixed in the United States. They don't really know what to make of the trade deal with the European Union. They are very, very happy on NASDAQ, not irrational exuberance, to borrow a term from Alan Greenspan long ago. And gold went down to 3,316. So if you're going to buy gold, maybe today is the day. I don't make recommendations, but I do believe in diversifying your portfolio. If you have some wealth, put some into precious metals. 1-800-221-7694. 1-800-221-7694. Now, Keir Starmer, yesterday the president struck the trade deal with the head of the EU. The Prime Minister of Great Britain, who's actually more important because he controls nuclear weapons, came by to see Donald Trump at his golf course today. And we got a lot to go through here. Let's start with cut number 7 as Keir Starmer arrives.
Yeah, a ceasefire is possible, but you have to get it. You have to end it. You're talking about with Israel's. You're talking about there because we have many ceasefires going on. The whole world is. If I weren't around, you'd have right now 6 major wars going on. India would be fighting with Pakistan. You see what we just did yesterday with 2 nations that we're trading with. And during the trade, I said, I'm not going to do any trade deal unless you guys settle your differences. And we got it settled in 24 hours. I mean, they just announced it was settled, which was a tremendous thing. But Serbia, Kosovo is another one. We have many hotspots that were at war. I think a very big one was India and Pakistan, because you're talking about 2 nuclear nations. That was a very big one. And we get help from the UK. The Prime Minister's helped. We have cases where we specifically need the help because somebody comes from here that you're aware of. And, when you come from a country, you can do things. And I call up the Prime Minister, and all of a sudden, he's able to do things. True also with other presidents and prime ministers. But we've done it. Nobody's ever done what we've done. We have 6 different major if you take a look at Rwanda and the Congo, Republic of the Congo, they've been fighting for 31 years, 8 million people dead. It was going on. Nobody could go to that part of Africa. They were being killed. If to even walk there, you're being killed with machetes. And it was a violent situation. And I was able to, they liked Trump. They wanted to make a trade deal with Trump. They wanted us to take their rare earth. They want to give us their rare earth. And I got to know the leader of the Congo. I got to know both of them indirectly. And I called him. I said, let's end the war. I don't want anything until you end the war. And we ended the war. As you know, the foreign ministers came up 2 weeks ago. And the leaders are going to be coming very shortly to Washington, Rwanda and Congo. I mean, that's another one that we did. So we've done a lot. It's an honor to do it. It's not hard for me to do it. And I use, not in all cases, but I use a combination of knowing them a little bit, or in some cases, knowing them a lot.
Okay, and then he went on, and then he's not all happy. It's not all giggles and grins over there. Cut number 9.
Well, look, immigration is a big factor, and I think, frankly, if they're coming from other countries and you don't know who they are, and are they coming from prisons? We have them where they came in from prisons. We're moving them all out. We had a border last June, just recent, last month. We had 0 people come into the country, 0, other than coming through legal means. If you're stopping immigration and stopping the wrong people, I give my hats are off to you. You're doing not a good thing. You're doing a fantastic thing. So I know nothing about the boats. But if the boats are loaded up with bad people, and they usually are, because, other countries don't send their best. They send people that they don't want. And they're not stupid people. And they send the people that they don't want. And I've heard that you've taken a much stronger stance on immigration.
Yeah, we've done a lot of work stopping them coming. We just signed an agreement to return them, and we've returned 35,000, in fact, under the first year of this Labour government, of people who shouldn't be in this country. So we're very pleased that we're getting on with returning people who've got no right to be here.
That's great. As somebody that loves this, I love this country. My mother was born in, as you know, born in Scotland, and it's an incredible place, a beautiful place. And if that be the case, I congratulate you. That's exactly, because, you know, Europe is a much different place than it was just 5 years ago, 10 years ago. And they've got to get their act together. If they don't, you're not going to have Europe anymore as you know it. And you can't do that. This is a magnificent part of the world, and you cannot ruin it. You cannot let people come in here illegally. And what happens is there'll be murderers, there'll be drug dealers, there'll be all sorts of things that other countries
President got
don't
his
want.
point across, and he's very, very happy to hear Keir Starmer say, yeah, I'm with you on immigration. Let me remind you, we're raising money for Texas, for Kerrville, for the people who are shattered in their lives, in their homes, in their livings in Kerrville. The banner is at the top of HughHewitt.com. It says, Help Texas. Head right over there. Help Texas. You cannot miss it. It's the top of the website. You folks are so generous. Thank you. Please continue to give what you can. The number is 855-359-4673, 855-359-4673. Senator Tom Cotton represents the great state of Arkansas. He is chairman of the Senate Intelligence Committee, as well as being on Armed Services Committee and the head of the Republican Conference. He's also a strong supporter of Israel, so I'm glad he's here because that's one of the topics today. Senator, welcome. I would like to begin by asking you, when do you think Ambassador Designate Waltz will get a vote? Because we're getting hammered at the UN on Israel, and Israel getting hammered at the UN, and we really need a strong voice up there. Any idea?
Hopefully this week, Hugh. The Senate Foreign Relations Committee voted him out of committee last week. We expect to process several dozen nominations this week, and of all those pending nominees, I can think of a few who have a more important post or who are more qualified for their posts than Mike Waltz. As you said, the jackals are out once again for Israel and by extension, the United States at the UN. We also have the United Nations considering snapback sanctions over the next 30 to 60 days. And of course, every September is the General Assembly. So I think it'd be very important and useful to have the president's personal envoy there confirmed by the Senate by the end of this week.
Well, that is good news to hear. Now, Senator, I don't know if you've heard the Commentary podcast today. You are a friend of Israel. You're a friend of Commentary. So am I to both of them. You've actually been roasted, I believe, at the Commentary Roast, which is coming up in the fall. But John Podhoretz is beside himself today because of this allegation of famine, which is nonsense. It's absolute nonsense. There might be food shortages in various parts of Gaza, but that's because of Hamas and because the UN is bad at its job. How does Israel turn around the information war, which seems to be piling up on them with Macron and Starmer and others just heaping it on?
To the extent there is any famine in Gaza, it's because Hamas, for as long as it's been in power, has stolen food and used food as a weapon, and that goes especially so since the October 7th atrocity against Israel. If you want to know just how central food is to Hamas's war against its own people, its war against Israel, and its information war against the Western world, you should understand that one of their very top demands in the negotiations in recent weeks has been that the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation shut down its operations. What is the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation? It's a new organization set up to deliver food to Gazans outside of the Hamas-affiliated, terrorist-infiltrated United Nations programs inside of Gaza. So just think about that. One of their very top demands is that this charitable foundation stop disseminating food because Hamas uses food as a weapon to stay in power.
Now, if in fact the trucks begin to roll, as Israel has said, they're just going to open up a humanitarian corridor because they can't win this information war with so many left-wingers in media, so they're just going to let trucks roll in every day. Do you think that's a good move or a bad move? I'm not sure what to think about that.
Hugh, I can't comment conclusively on how Israel is going to conduct food aid operations, given the military circumstances on the ground. Obviously, their generals and their political leadership understand the security situation at each particular distribution site. better than I do or better than almost any American would, but I do trust them to do everything they can to try to alleviate any Hamas-imposed suffering on Gazans. I just want to point out, Hugh, what an unusual, I would say, singular standard that the world seems to impose on Israel yet again. Israel was viciously attacked on October 7th without provocation. Its people were slaughtered, children were killed, women were raped, and yet the world expects Israel to provide food to the people from the land that launched that attack. Correct me if I'm wrong, Hugh, but I don't remember food aid going from the United States to Germany and Japan in World War II. Sure, there's a lot of aid after the fact to help those countries rebuild and keep out Russian communism. But in the middle of a war of aggression that was launched against Israel, Israel really has no responsibility whatsoever to provide any kind of aid into Gaza. And the fact that they're doing so just proves that they always go the extra mile because they always face unique standards in the world.
I think you're right, and I also believe that the world's propaganda machine run by leftists will never stop beating up on Israel, so I'm glad to have you say that so succinctly. Now I want to turn to the EU-U.S. trade deal that President Trump announced yesterday. Financial Times headline number one, Germany and France hit out at EU-U.S. deal. Euro slides as investors bet the long-awaited trade agreement will hurt Eurozone economy. Headline number two, how the EU succumbed to Trump's tariff steamroller. So I guess we know who won that negotiation. What do you make of it, Tom Cotton?
I think that's what's sometimes known as an admission against interest in a court of law. As hard as it is for American newspapers to credit Donald Trump with any success, it may be even harder for European ones. Well, I think it's downstream of the point the president has often made in these negotiations is these other nations don't hold the cards. America is both the largest, most productive and innovative economy in the world. We're also the largest single consumer market in the world as well. And it's really a testament to the poor decisions of past presidents and policymakers that we've allowed our allies, much less our adversaries, take advantage of our workers and our consumers so badly. So President Trump is on a hot streak right now with the European Union and Indonesia and Japan, and I look forward, hopefully this week, before the August 1 deadline he gave many countries, for more agreements to be reached.
Yeah, Senator, a lot of people do not understand what non-tariff trade barriers are. How do you explain them to the average constituent, much less a Steelers fan?
Well, I think most Americans understand the concept of red tape with their own government. You know, they've stood in line, been frustrated at the DMV, or had long waits calling in to a government agency. It's basically the same concept. Other countries imposing all kinds of red tape or onerous burdens on American products, but even if they don't face a tariff, makes it very hard, if not impossible, to sell our goods in those countries. You know, Europe, for instance, has a lot of unreasonable regulations about genetically modified organisms, GMO foods, that our farmers have used to produce, again, the most bountiful harvests in the world. These are spurious. They don't really address safety grounds. What they are is ways to protect European farmers. If European consumers like, I don't know, purely natural seed or foods produced from seeds that have not been modified anyway, if they like grass-fed beef, that's fine. They can have it. Their supermarkets can advertise for it. But why not give their consumers a choice of America's products? The reason they don't is because they want to protect their own farmers.
Senator Tom Cotton, always good to check in with you. I hope you are right about Michael Waltz, and I hope we continue to talk throughout August, and I hope you get out of town sooner rather than later, because I hear it's pretty miserable in D.C. Thank you, Senator Cotton. Follow him on X at @SenTomCotton. Don't forget, we are raising money for Texas. Help Texas banner is at the top of HughHewitt.com. Kerrville was shattered. They are still picking up the pieces. Another body was found yesterday, recovered. You can call Food for the Poor at 855-359-4673, 855-359-4673. Text Hewitt to 51555. They'll send you a link. But I think it's just easiest to go to HughHewitt.com, find the banner, Help Texas at the top. $50 sends another box, $500 sends 10 of them. as much as you can, as soon as you can. Thank you in advance. Donald Trump gave a very long press availability, actually gave two of them, one on the way into a meeting with the United Kingdom's Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, and one during or after the meeting, both of which we caught a lot of on tape. Here is the president talking about the ceasefire between Thailand and Cambodia, cut number 11.
As you know, with Cambodia, they just announced a very big, beyond it, peace. That was going to be a very bad war. And so we're honored we got involved, and it's essentially settled. I think they're going to be settling it today. So it went for a few days. That was going to go on for years. That could have gone on for years. Millions of people could have been killed. We ended the war, and we're very happy about it.
Now, I love the fact that the protesters there are playing the pipes, because I think it just gives you a sense of place, right? I think that's fine. Then he went on to talk about taxes. Right, especially estate taxes, which I especially hate. Cut number 12. They're double taxation, sometimes triple taxation. Cut number 12.
I love our farmers. As you know, in our tax bill, we have a clause that's very important. We were losing a lot of farms to the banks because a loving mother and father would die and left their farm to their children or their child, but their children, their family. And they loved their family, and they thought they were doing them a favor, but they had a 50% tax to pay. So the land would get valued and at a high number, because some of the farms were valuable, but they didn't, they couldn't quantify it. And they'd go out and borrow money to pay the estate tax, or the death tax, as it's called. And they'd overextend and they'd lose the farm.
Sometimes it's even more direct, which is, we're not going to do that. We're not going to mortgage the farm to pay the farm because we're not farmers anymore. They just sell the farm to big agra. Estate taxes are double taxation. They're terrible. They are gone at the federal level. The states that still have them, you are way behind the curve and you're keeping growth from your state. You ought to get rid of a death tax if you've got one in your state. He went on to talk about economic growth in a more avuncular, expansive way. Cut number 15.
I have a theory that low taxes bring growth. We just passed a big tax cut bill, the biggest bill in the history of our country, actually. And one big, beautiful bill. I used to call it the great one big, beautiful. We took the word great out. But it's actually called the one big, beautiful bill. It's essentially a very large tax cut bill for everybody. And our country's, pretty soon, I think I can say it right now, our country has never done better. We had a country that was dead. It was dead 6 months ago, a year ago. Leaders from NATO, we had a very successful meeting at NATO. Your prime minister was there. It was an unbelievable love fest with all of those countries. And they agreed to go 5% and all the things. Very smart to do. But many of the leaders said, essentially, they said, your country was dead 1 year ago. 1 year ago, we had a dead, and we did. We had a dead country. We had a president who didn't know where the hell he was. We had horrible, horrible people running our country. I think they were sick people, actually, sick. You talk about censorship. Those are big. That's all they did was censor, and they didn't know what to do. And they had high taxes. They wanted more tax, total censorship, transgender for everybody, men playing in women's sports. Everything bad they wanted, and they still do. That's what they still do. That's why they're down at 15% or something, I saw today, the lowest that the other part of the Democrats have ever been. But no, I find that when you lower taxes, you get growth.
He's right, by the way, about how bad the Democrats are polling. I was on Fox News earlier today with Trace Gallagher, and I'll play that for you in the next segment. I got asked about this poll that came out. You know how many people are very enthusiastic about the Democratic Party in the United States? Very enthusiastic. 8%. 8%. Here's Relief Factor. I'm taking 2 of them today. Why? I did something to my hamstring yesterday. I have never, in my many years of running and trundling and doing all sorts of things, ever had a hamstring pull. And it's not pleasant. It's really, just as the grandkids arrive, I wonder if that's connected. I don't know. But I'm sticking around the studio longer every day and coming in earlier. I carry in curcumin and resveratrol and omega. I'll tell you why. I normally only take it in the first hour. You watch me do it on the Salem News Channel. You hear me do it on all of our radio stations and wonderful affiliates. And I'm taking 2 a day because I got to get rid of this thing. I cannot chase 3-year-olds with a hamstring pull. I cannot do it. So it's got to go away. And that means ice and rest. And I'm not really cut out for ice and rest. But Relief Factor kicks in, and I love it. 1-800, the number 4, and the word relief. 1-800-4-RELIEF. Or visit their website, relieffactor.com. Find that starter pack for $19.95, less than $1 a day, at relieffactor.com. You just heard President Trump say the Democrats are as bad as they've ever been as a party with the national electorate. And he's referring to a new Wall Street Journal poll, which has the Democratic approval at 15%, the very much approved number at 8%. I got asked about this on Fox News today with Trace Gallagher, cut number 2.
And with that, let's bring in Hugh Hewitt, host of the Hugh Hewitt Show and a Fox News contributor. Hugh, great to have you on as always. I want to give some context here and put this up on the screen. This is Call for One, talking about what Americans prefer Republicans over Democrats on. You go look at the list: the economy plus 12, inflation plus 10, immigration plus 17, illegal immigration plus 24. The list goes on here. And you talk to Democrats and they know, Hugh, the numbers are bad. They just can't agree on how exactly to make them better.
Well, Trace, the number one thing you mentioned, 24% on illegal immigration. Voters remember that for the 2 years prior to the last presidential election, Democrats said they couldn't do anything about the border without new legislation. Donald Trump arrives and he closes the border in 2 months. And so they've got a long tail. They got a lot of burden to carry going forward. And what you heard the president in that clip just say, he rattled off inflation. It's tamed now. It wasn't tamed under Joe Biden. And Title IX, protecting girls and women's sports, that's very important to 80, 90% of Americans. Democrats are wrong about that. And then since the election, who's leading the Democrats? Well, Chuck Schumer has not exactly been a knight in shining armor for anything that they resemble. And they don't have a leader other than Zoran Mamdani. And, Comrade Mamdani in New York is not who I think I would want to be the brand of my party. So they're stuck. They're stuck in a hole. First rule of holes, stop digging. They haven't stopped digging. They keep digging deeper, and that means those kind of numbers.
Yeah, and it amazes me when you look at the numbers, you kind of delve deeper, you find that when it comes to the poll that struck the 8% of voters, 8% for Democrats view them, and the quote is very favorably. 8%, Hugh. That means, it's a total about face. Instead, as you say, they seem to be going in the same direction.
8% is a hairbreadth away from nothing. And that's very unusual. The Democratic Party used to be robust in year and out year. Whether they were in power or they were not in power, they were still seen as one of the two great parties. They have to come back to the center. They have to get at least to the center left. What they've done since the election, of course, is pull their hair, shout. They've adopted profanity and vulgarity as kind of a talking point, and that doesn't really work. And you look around, you wonder, where are the Bill Clinton Democrats? They were never this far down. What happened to them?
Yeah, it's a good question. Hugh Hewitt, great to have you on the show as always.
What happened to them indeed? Where'd they go? And why don't they stand up and say anything? And I'll tell you why. They're afraid of their virulent left wing. There is no virulent right wing about whom Donald Trump is afraid. Trump commands the party. And there is no, there are disagreements within the party. There always are. There were lots of disagreements leading up to the one big beautiful bill that got ironed out. There is no nutter fringe that has any influence over any of the significant players in the Republican Party. In the Democratic Party, AOC and Bernie Sanders and Zoran Mamdani and everyone else, Jasmine Crockett, you name it, they're nutters. They're far left people. Scare the dickens out of everyone like, Chris Coons is the most moderate Democrat, I think, in the United States Senate, but he's from Delaware, so it doesn't much matter. Ro Khanna is a socialist, and a good one, a smart one, and there are smart socialists. They're just wrong. They're not rotten. They're just wrong, and we like him to come on. There were others. I've seen Rahm Emanuel on with Megyn Kelly. He would be a formidable presidential opponent if he were to show up, if he could make it through the primaries. Question is, could he? Could he make it through the primaries now? He's 65 years old. You just wonder whether or not that's fine to run the first time. I think we're done with 75-year-old presidents. Donald Trump is unique with his energy. We're not going to do the Joe Biden thing again. But I just don't know where they went. And I don't know that we can ever expect them back. Now, I also want to go and make sure you hear President Trump talking about Iran, which he did today at Turnberry next to Keir Starmer, cut number 18.
I think Iran's been very nasty with their words, with their mouth. I think they've been very nasty. They got the hell knocked out of them, and I don't think they know it. I actually don't think they know it. They really do. The whole thing's a con job. We have a lot of con jobs going on. But Iran was beaten up very badly, for good reason. We cannot have them have a nuclear weapon. But they still talk about enrichment. I mean, who would do that? You just come out of something that's so bad, and they talk about, we want to continue enrichment. Who would say that? How stupid can you be to say that? So we're not going to allow that to happen. We're not allowing that to happen.
Can I get a clip of how stupid can you be? Because I think he's right. Let's play that again because I like that so much. Cut number, whatever it was. For
I think
Iran.
Iran's been very nasty with their words, with their mouth. I think they've been very nasty. They got the hell knocked out of them, and I don't think they know it. I actually don't think they know it. They really do. The whole thing's a con job. We have a lot of con jobs going on. But Iran was beaten up very badly, for good reason. We cannot have them have a nuclear weapon. But they still talk about enrichment. I mean, who would do that? You just come out of something that's so bad, and they talk about, we want to continue enrichment. Who would say that? How stupid can you be to say that? So we're not going to allow that to happen. We're not allowing that to happen.
I got a question for you, my audience. 1-800-520-1234. When Donald Trump says we have a lot of con jobs going on, what does he mean by that? I think in the context of Iran, they were thought to be a pretty significant military force, and they were revealed to be not at all. They have no air defenses. They have no air force. They have no army. All they had was a nuclear program and terrorism. And Israel's taking care of their terrorist proxies, and we took out their nuclear program, and Israel blew up all the remaining defenses that they had. But he said we got a lot of con jobs going on, not just Iran. Iran was a con job. They conned the world into thinking they were formidable, and they weren't. They were paper tiger. What's that mean? 1-800-520-1234. Connection to me, Hugh Hewitt. I asked the audience before I went to break. President Trump was talking. We got a lot of con jobs going on. What's he mean? Denise in the city of Broad Shoulders, Chicago. Hello, Denise.
Hello, Hugh. How are you, dear?
Great.
I think Trump means I think it's all encompassing. I told your screener, I think you just have to really pay attention to what he says. There's always a little something in there. And I think when he says there's a lot of con jobs going on, he's talking about everything. He's just not talking about, Iran or other countries. He's talking about us too. Clapper, Comey, Obama, everything.
Oh, I thought he was just referring to countries that are believed to be very strong and are in fact not so strong. When push comes to shove, we push them over pretty easily. But you think it's broader?
No, I think it's much broader. I think he's brilliant when he talks about things, and I think people should just pay attention to him. They just dismiss him, like he says stupid stuff, but I don't think so. I think
I love the audio. I absolutely love the audio, and when we can get them on video like we have here with Starmer, I love that too. Hey, Denise, thank you. Thank you. I hope it's not too hot in Chicago. Steve in Atlanta. Hi, Steve.
Hey, Hugh. I agree with Denise. And the latest one, I think, is this narrative that's going around on both sides that says that you can't go after Obama because he's got the immunity thing from the that Trump got from the Supreme Court. Now, in that decision, as I recall, you're the constitutional, not convict. You're the con law attorney. I'm not. But there were levels. You know, if it's directly related to your duties, you get immunity. Then there were two other levels, I think. But I don't think things that fall right up against treason, which more than one of your Salem media hosts, talk show hosts, has called it, and I think it is too. And so I don't think he gets a pass on this, and I wish everybody that loves this country would stop giving him a pass. Because
I'm going to disappoint you, Steve. He does get a pass. We should not prosecute former presidents, and the Supreme Court made that pretty clear. And if it happened in the Oval, and it did, it's with a slippery guy like Brennan, and it was, you're never going to get to him. And in fact, we want to end lawfare against former presidents and their spouses. Now, Mr. Brennan, I've heard it said today that John Ratcliffe has intimated there's more coming. Mr. Brennan does not enjoy any immunity. The former director of the CIA, who is now, we know, mostly responsible for Russia, along with the Clinton campaign. He's not immune. No. And he testified. Everyone else got statute of limitations, by the way. Everything that happened in 2016, those crimes are over. By the way, treason has a specific definition of the Constitution, and that's the federal statute, treason. And it's not treason. That's colorful language, but it's not appropriate for con law people. And Steve, thank you. It's the end of July. It's the beginning of August. August is a news desert. I'm sure I've been in this business since 1990, and I think all of you know, or most of you know, not much happens in August. In fact, even the market gets really boring because a lot of the traders and the investors, they leave, they get out of town. No one wants to be in Manhattan in August. No one wants to be in D.C. in August. And so everybody's leaving. And so I'm just hoping that President Trump gives a lot of press conferences, like today. He's in Scotland at his golf course in Turnberry, and the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, Keir Starmer, came to see him. So we have a lot of tape and a lot of interesting things that he said, and I'm keying in on one of them. I've covered most of them already in hours 1 and 2, but if you're just tuning in, this little excerpt is pregnant with meaning. Cut number 18.
I think Iran's been very nasty with their words, with their mouth. I think they've been very nasty. They got the hell knocked out of them, and I don't think they know it. I actually don't think they know it. They really do. The whole thing's a con job. We have a lot of con jobs going on. But Iran was beaten up very badly, for good reason. We cannot have them have a nuclear weapon. But they still talk about enrichment. I mean, who would do that? You just come out of something that's so bad, and they talk about, we want to continue enrichment. Who would say that? How stupid can you be to say that? So we're not.
A lot of people have covered Donald Trump longer than me, but in the last 10 years, only Selena Zito comes close in terms of the number of on-the-record interviews. And I've picked up some cues. One is the word nasty. Nasty is a signifier for Donald Trump, really bad. Lowest of the low, nasty. And Iran is nasty. But stupid is something you really don't want to be in Donald Trump's book, because no respect. Nasty and no respect, bad combination. So, but in the middle of that, he said, we have a lot of con jobs going on. Now, obviously, the obvious con job is Iran purported to be a military power and a regional hegemon. And Team Obama thought it was. They fell for it. Team Biden fell for it. They were afraid of Iran, literally afraid of Iran, as was everyone. And Israel kept saying, not going to get a nuclear weapon. And the United States kept saying, not going to get a nuclear weapon. And Donald Trump meant it, so he took it out. And turns out, wasn't that hard. Took a dozen B-2s, 36 hours to destroy everything, obliterate everything. So the question becomes, he said, we got a lot of con jobs going on. What's he talking about? Phil in Philadelphia, 1-800-520-1234. Hi, Phil.
Yes, sir, Mr. Hewitt. Hey, I have...
Oh, we lost. Oh, your phone dropped, Phil. You have to call me back. All right? I think that's you.
Mr. Hewitt? Mr. Hewitt?
Oh, you're back. Go ahead.
Yes, sir. I'm sorry. I have a segue that goes perfectly with this Iranian stupidity statement that the president made. What about the con job that was pulled on Congressman Jeff Van Drew by Pentagon officials that showed him intel that there was an Iranian warship off our east coast launching drones over New Jersey? Remember, he came out and made a very public statement about that?
Oh, yeah.
Why are these Pentagon officials still in uniform, and who are they?
Well, I'm not sure I remember that he said it was Pentagon officials. He said he'd been shown that, and you're right. I'd forgotten all about that. I was thinking about that the other day.
On your show.
Yeah, no, not my show. Mr. Van Drew's never been on my show. So not my show. Maybe Chris Stegall, Philly guy.
Okay.
Yes, sir. But I do remember the statement, and I'll have to go back and look it up because you're right. Okay. Somebody conned him. But you remind me of something I want to say. Thank you, Phil. Which is, after the use of drones, I have a column coming out tomorrow in Fox News. After the use of drones by Ukraine and Russia and the use of drones by Israel and Iran, I am very glad. The final explanation for the unidentified flying objects in New Jersey was our military was running some stuff involving drones. And I hope it's drone detection and destruction, because what we saw displayed in Ukraine and Iran, in Russia and Iran, is vulnerability to fleets of drones. Now, Dwayne and I have had this running conversation for years and years and years and years. I hate them. I don't think they ought to be in private hands. I think they are absolutely a menace to the world, because pretty soon the payload's going to get smaller and smaller. It's going to be bioweapons or larger charge bombs or bigger and bigger drones with bigger and bigger payloads of conventional weaponry, and we're not going to be able to do anything about it unless we figure out how to stop drones. Now, we are shooting down drones in the Red Sea and the Gulf that the Houthis send at us, and most of Iran's drones, if not 100% of them that they sent towards Israel, got shot down. Some of the ballistic missiles got through. Drones are slow, but if you're not looking in the right direction and you're not on your A game, one of them's going to get through. And so it's truly a menace. Eric in Atlanta. What do you say, Eric?
Mr. Hewitt, how are you, sir?
Good.
Good, man. You are a rational mind for rational thinkers. As far as what did Trump mean, we've got a former KGB officer as the head of Russia. We've got a former, you might as well say, core Al-Qaeda guy as the leader in Syria. Those two guys are married, by the way, more or less. There are a lot of con jobs in a lot of very important places, and the last thing we need to be doing is showing ourselves to be living in like a rear view mirror mentality as far as, Brennan, Obama, and all this kind of stuff. What happened then? We're not paying yesterday's taxes. We're paying right now's taxes.
I like that analogy, a rear view mirror mentality. And Trump does not have that, right? He's a forward-looking guy, and he knows where he wants to go, and he's keeping his eyes on where you want to go, which is rule number one of driver's ed. Keep your eyes fixed on where you want to go. And all the people that fell for all the stuff about Iran, that you couldn't blow up the underground facility, it's too deep, we won't be able to do it, it's gone. And Donald Trump and that intelligence assessment from 2007, which assessed that Iran had abandoned their nuclear program in 2003. That was a con job designed to tie W's hands, because he also was a serious man. And we ended up with 8 years of Obama and 4 years of Biden. Trump wouldn't have let them get a nuke in term one. He wasn't going to let them get a nuke now. He's a serious man. Thank you, my friend. Gil, also in Atlanta. Yeah, I got a very big audience in Atlanta. Hi, Gil.
Hi, Hugh. Thanks for taking my call. We live in a world of con jobs, Hugh. Name something that's not a hoax. Russia, COVID, climate change, Ukraine. We live in a world of con jobs.
Well, let me comment on some of these. COVID was real, killed millions of people, but the response to it was a con job. And the idea, Anthony Fauci was a con job. And unfortunately, Francis Cullen was a con job. And the idea that it wasn't a lab leak was a con job. But it was a real deal. Climate is changing, but the climate always changes. And there is a man-made contribution. We don't know what it is. We don't know how we would change it. And guess what? We're not going to get off of fossil fuels. We need them. We want them. I'm in an air-conditioned studio, and everybody in D.C. is in an air-conditioned room right now, or they're sweating their mind out. You know, it's 111 in Phoenix right now. That's not global warming. It's the desert. It's the same way every summer in Phoenix. And the bottom line is, the really bottom line, I think he's talking about other countries about which we need not be afraid or at all hesitant in expressing where we're going and when we're going. And I think one of those was Iran, and he's not going to, they are shattered and they're stupid. He's right about that. They're theocrats. Thank you, Gil. Dan in Glencoe, Minnesota. How are you, Dan?
I'm doing well, Hugh. It's been a long time since I talked to you. You're a fine man, great American. I guess I get a little, how can I say, or annoyed. And you mean well, and you're a very knowledgeable and intelligent man. And when a man is in the presidential office and is planning the destruction of the following government.
Hey, Dan, hold over through the break, will you? I want to hear you out, but we're up against the break, so I want to hold you over and hear you out. So don't go anywhere.
Thank you.
Dan, we'll be right back after the break. My phone number is 1-800-520-1234. Don't forget Texas. We have the banner up over at HughHewitt.com. Help Texas, and I appreciate all of you who will go there and contribute. They got whacked in Kerrville. Another body recovered yesterday, and Food for the Poor is sponsoring this campaign. 855-359-4673, 855-359-4673, or the Help Texas banner at the top of HughHewitt.com. Bethany Mandel is the co-founder of the MomWars.substack.com. The Mom Wars, always great reading. We'll get to that in the end. But Bethany, you saw John and Rachel Poland today. Both of them have been guests on this show. Of course, their son Hirsch was murdered by Hamas terrorists in the tunnels of Gaza last year. What did they have to say, and to whom were they saying it?
So I'm at the Israel on Campus Coalition's National Leadership Summit. It's happening in DC it was here yesterday and today and tomorrow. And it's a gathering of 700 college students who are, here to learn how to best advocate for Israel. And John and Rachel came and spoke to these students about, what they can take from Hershey sort of to bring forth to their campuses. And it was incredible. I mean, John and Rachel get a lot of media requests and a lot of speaking engagement requests. And John said he always comes to speak to students. He always likes talking to young people. But what was really moving was that he said, they're trying to think about what they're going to take from Hirsch's memory moving forward, and how we can all, as Americans, as, decent people of humanity, what we can take from his memory. And they said, being active listeners, which is something that Hirsch was, and, trying to figure out in our very small ways how to wake up that day and say, how can I make the world better? And that's who they described Hirsch as. And it's really powerful because, as you know, and your listeners know, thank God, there's 50 hostages left in Gaza. And Keith and Aviva Siegel, Keith was an American citizen that was just released recently as well. They spoke here as well. And, the theme is, we have to get these hostages home. And so it was really powerful to hear both of those couples share that message with this audience today at the summit.
Bethany, earlier on the program, I talked with Senator Cotton and with Dr. Oren about the fact that Israel appears to be losing the international media war, that the whole myth of a famine in Gaza is back. The whole idea of widespread starvation, and indeed two Israeli groups, which Dr. Oren explained to me are far-left groups, which the Times of Israel did not, unfortunately, put into their story, have declared that Israel is conducting a genocide in Gaza. But they're far-left nuts, and so now that I know that, I don't have to pay attention to that. But is there talk at this conference about how to combat this narrative of famine, which is simply not true?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of those sort of messaging conversations that are happening from, Naftali Bennett to Jonathan Conricus. I think you've had him on your show before. I'm not sure. He was the former IDF spokesman, but I mean, you kind of just have to you have to counter with facts. And the facts are that the aid was not being distributed by the United Nations. Israel was not blocking it. And countering with those facts, but unfortunately, the other side traffic in misinformation and disinformation. And so, one of the most glaring examples was the visual of the starving child that a lot of publications used to describe this so-called famine in Gaza. But the reality was that child had cystic fibrosis and was not malnourished because of a lack of food and a lack of aid, but because of his muscular illness. And what was really disingenuous was when the New York Times photographed him in his mother's arms, his brother was just off in the same shot. And the New York Times chose very strategically to cut the brother out of the shot because the brother wasn't malnourished. And so if you saw those two young boys together, you would understand there's something going on with the younger one, and that is that muscular disorder. But I mean, it's a lot of disinformation and misinformation out there.
If you listen to the commentary podcast today, John Podhoretz, is beside himself. He feels like it's an overwhelming amount of lies that have led people like Macron, who's got his own reason to divert attention from his incompetence, and maybe Starmer and other people to, even the president today said he's interested in getting people fed. People are getting fed. Hamas is killing the people who are trying to feed Gaza. It's Hamas. It's all about these terrorists. Are people that stupid?
I mean, yes, the answer is yes. My husband Seth, also on the commentary podcast, was beside himself last night as well, because this cycle of misinformation, it's a blood libel. That's what it is. They're accusing Jews of perpetrating a Holocaust. And it's a blood libel. It's a modern day blood libel. It's really disturbing to watch. If the Germans had had cameras and videographers that were as effective as Hamas did during World War II, would we have seen the same kind of propaganda? I think we would have, because unfortunately, war is not comfortable. War is messy, and Israel is doing everything that it can in its ability to make this as easy as it can on innocent civilians. But they're facing an uphill battle of media misinformation that is being rubber stamped by foreign governments left and right, up and down.
The one statistic I want this audience to know is that every war has a civilian combatant casualty ratio. That's the number of civilians who die compared to the number of combatants who die. In this war in Gaza, it is 13 to 14. For every 14 Hamas terrorists who are killed, 13 civilians are believed to have died. That is the lowest ratio in the history of war that we know of. And yet people still say genocide, genocide. Bethany, I can understand why John is tearing out his hair, and Seth and everybody else. I don't know what to do except to repeat the fact. That's a fact. I guess I'm using your approach, which is just combat narrative with fact.
Yeah, I mean, that's all you can do.
I want to lighten up. I loved your column about parents stop following your kids around at the playground. First of all, that does not apply to grandparents, because if those kids get hurt on our watch, we'll never hear the end of it. But it does apply to parents. Tell people they can go read themomwars.substack.com to read it, but tell people what the basic message is.
Yeah, so I was at the playground when I wrote that column, and I wrote it on my phone because I wasn't paying attention to my children. And I was sitting next to a couple who just could not, the two parents could not stop shadowing their child. And he couldn't interact with the other kids around him. He couldn't sort of judge if he could jump from one location to another. It was really inhibiting his ability to play, and through play comes learning and comes understanding. And so I sort of wanted to write that to young parents out there who might still be shadowing their kids at the playground, and say, like,
how old was this kid? You left that detail. How old was the kid?
2.5. I mean, I was ignoring my 2.5-year-old, so they could have ignored their 2.5-year-old.
Again, parents are different from grandparents. Grandparents have a different duty, which is to deliver the charge back unbroken. One of my, Genghis Kate, on our watch, chipped her tooth. Luckily, it's a baby tooth, so it doesn't matter. We don't know how. We don't know when. She didn't complain about it.
Knowing Genghis Kate, she doesn't blame, the mom does not blame you.
No,
She knows.
no, she does not blame us, but it still happened on our watch. I don't want anything bad to happen, but I must say, how was the reaction to that column, Bethany? Because I thought it was fabulous.
I mean, I think there was one person who commented to the two of us that said, well, I pay attention to my children at the pool. Those are two very different places, my friend. A kid can't drown in a minute and a half at the playground. It's very different. Pay attention to your kid at the pool every single second, at the playground that are designed by lawyers who have liability, when they've designed it. Like, let loose. There's no way they could hurt themselves even if they.
Yeah, the kids now bounce. They used to have these death traps out there that were 20 feet high that you'd climb up, but not anymore. Now it's just that rubber tire thing that's recycled. Bethany Mandel, founder, along with others, of themomwars.substack.com. Thank you, Bethany. I want to make sure you know something about one of my sponsors, Consumer Cellular. They will save you a lot of money if you got 20 minutes. It takes about 20 minutes to switch to Consumer Cellular, and you can have savings without sacrifice. Excellent. The equal of any service anywhere in America is Consumer Cellular. You go to consumercellular.com/Hugh. Don't forget to use my code HUGH25. You get $5 off each bill for the first 5 months, but you got to call to make the switch. 1-800-411-4454. 1-800-411-4454. 1-800-411-4454. Better yet, go to consumercellular.com/Hugh. consumercellular.com/Hugh. But before you do any of this, get your cell phone bill and find out how much you are paying. Chances are, if you're listening to me right now and you're in your car driving home on the East Coast or going back to work or on your calls on the West Coast, you don't know what you're paying. You have no idea. You signed up for something a long time ago. You probably got unlimited data. And unlimited data may have made sense for you back then, way back whenever you made your choice of cell phone plan. Certainly did for me, because, when I think I started with the cell phone carrier that I had forever, I had 2 teenage boys, and they play a lot of video games. And you know what? Then you need unlimited data. But if you're over 50, you do not. You probably need 5 gigs or 10 gigs of data, but you do not need unlimited data. However, if you're over 50 and you want unlimited data because you want to know you're never going to get surprised by a bill, Consumer Cellular will offer you 2 lines, not 1, but 2 lines for $60 a month. You keep your number, you keep your data, you can keep your old device or get a new one if you want. But the first thing to do is call their America-based service centers, 1-800-411-4454, 1-800-411-4454. You will get a menu. Press 1 for this, press 2 for that, press 3 for this. You will do one button, and then you'll be talking to a real live human being who's been very well trained about what you ought to do when it comes to data. Because cell phone bills all come down to how much data are you paying for. And if you have an unlimited data plan and you're over 50, you probably are just throwing money away. Can you afford to do that? Do you want to do that? Can you at least go and get your cell phone? You don't have to switch. Call them, see what they can do for you. But know what you're paying before you call. And if you do call, remember HUGH25. Right? HUGH25. I want to go back to President Trump. He made one funny comment today. He's not going to London. And if my guys have my old tapes up, Dennis Farina from Snatches saying the same thing. But here's Donald Trump, cut number 14. Or not. Cut number 14.
Will you visit London during the state visit?
I will. I'm not a fan of your mayor. I think he's done a terrible job, the mayor of London. But the nasty person, I think he's done. I think he's a friend of mine, right? No, I think he's done a terrible job. But I would certainly visit London. Yeah.
Anything to declare?
Don't go to England.
Play that again.
Anything to declare?
Yeah, don't go to England.
Now, I was just in England with the Hillsdale folks. I was just in London. I love London. And Keir Starmer. Play that again, because it's so fun. Keir Starmer has to. There are times when you have to interrupt the President of the United States, and one of them is when he's rolling over your friends. Cut number 14.
I will. I'm not a fan of your mayor. I think he's done a terrible job. The mayor of London, but the nasty person. I think he's done. I think he's
a friend of mine.
All right, here's my relief. It's a friend of mine. Here's a friend of mine. Relief factor, and boy, do I need it from here forward. Grandkids are arriving by the bucket load, and that's great. I love them, and it's great fun. But somehow, I have pulled a hamstring, which I have never done in all my years of trundling and running and racing. Not once, never. Don't know how, don't know when. Woke up this morning and said, oh my goodness, what is that? And of course, it's a hammy. And it's new to me. I'm used to shin splints. I'm used to bad backs. I'm used to tennis elbow. I've had it all. I've fallen down enough time. Relief factor, taking it twice a day today because I'm doubling down. Got to get rid of this thing in a hurry. And it does get rid of minor aches, pains, and strains. The minor aches, pains, and strains that follow you around and bother you. Call 1-800, the number 4 in the word relief, 1-800-4-RELIEF, and you'll get the $19.95 starter pack. Or go find that starter pack offer and lose money on every first order, less than $1 a day for 3 weeks. ReliefFactor.com, ReliefFactor.com. Admiral Mark Montgomery, retired United States Navy, joins me as a senior fellow with the Foundation for the Defense of Democracies. Admiral, quick question for you. It's actually kind of dense. Yesterday, big trade deal signed with the EU. Part of that is the European Union's commitment to buy, quote, vast amounts, close quote, of U.S. military hardware from our defense industry. Do we have the capacity to sell them all this stuff?
So, Hugh, I think that's actually describing the conditions as is. They do buy vast amounts from us. They need to buy more, and then that gets into your point. Are we actually ready to sell them more? Because we're currently selling a lot in the Middle East, to Saudi Arabia, to Israel. We sell a lot in Asia, to Japan, Australia, Korea, and Taiwan. And so Europe increasing because they need to compensate for 30 plus years of kind of a busman's holiday on a lot of procurement. That's going to be a challenge. So they do buy a lot. Agreeing to buy even more is possible, but we're going to absolutely have to make the kind of investments in defense industrial base that increase our capacity, not just that we build the max missiles possible, but we change what that number is year over year over year.
Is this also a way to perhaps get additional weaponry to Ukraine? If we have capacity to produce, for example, whatever is the replacement, I know we're not making ATACMS anymore, but there's a new missile. If we have the capacity to produce more and they've agreed to buy more, is that just another way of supplying Ukraine?
That's exactly it. In both the air defense systems, Patriot and what's called AMRAAM, which goes on their NASAMS air defense systems we've given them and our European allies have given them, and the Japanese and others over the last 3 years, they'll buy replacement missiles for that. And then you mentioned something great, offensive systems. It's both MLR, it's both medium range artillery that's MLRS that are launched from they launched something called a GMLRS. I hate all these acronyms, but that's an Army medium range system, and then the long range system ATACMS. I think in that case, what I'd hope is the president would give them ATACMS to give to Ukraine, and they would then pay for the ATACMS replacement, which is a missile called the Precision Strike Missile. The Army doesn't want ATACMS anymore. President Trump's not willing to give them to Ukraine for free, but I think he would give them to Ukraine if the Europeans then backfilled the United States with the equivalent cost value of precision strike missiles. So these can really work together to improve Ukraine. I presumed that was part and parcel of the president's thinking on this.
All right, now, where does our defense industry have to expand fastest? Is it in the middle of the country? Is it on the coast with the seaborne stuff? Or is it everywhere, everything? Or do we have a priority list?
Yes, it's the middle one. Yes, it's everywhere. But look, principally, I will tell you, because of state decisions on how you do environmental impact studies for munitions factories, how you support with tax incentives, companies coming in. Preferentially, defense firms are in, the Southeast and the Southwest of the United States. And you see a lot of that. That doesn't mean there aren't exceptions to that in Michigan and in other states, but the vast majority of these, and then obviously Crane, Indiana, a terrific amount of work goes around outside the Navy facilities there. But the real factor, I mean, Texas, Florida, Arkansas are big states for this. Arizona, these are all big states for this production. And it's a demand signal on their STEM workforce. The good news is there's jobs for all Americans. The bad news is they may need to move.
Well, now those are nice places to go to. Okay, let me switch to the other side of the world, because today the president spent a lot of time talking about the fact that the Thailand-Cambodia border combat was coming to an end. The United States had stepped in and persuaded both to stop. I've been to both countries exactly once. I'm sure you've been to both a lot more than that. How could Cambodia ever expect to go up against Thailand? I mean, Cambodia may be the most impoverished place I've ever been.
So I'm in Taiwan right now. So I'm in the time zone. What I'll tell you is that this is one of those things where Thailand, certainly with F-16s, the artillery they have, everything, they have much better equipment. But you're asking me, how does a smaller country stand up to a larger country if they're willing to sacrifice? And Cambodia has historically, as we know, in their wars that they fought in the past with Vietnam and others and themselves, been willing to sacrifice hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people in Pyrrhic causes. So what I'll say is, look, this would be foolhardy for the two of them to go to war. This is a minor border dispute. It's 3 or 4 different areas where the border dispute is, but it is not worth, neither one of them has an economy that can take any tanking. So, I think that this needed to come to an end. Some adults need to come in the room. Malaysia, potentially the United States, were those countries that helped the two of them decide this was stupid.
All right, and since you're in Taiwan, are they upping their defense expenditures? Are they getting serious about demonstrating to China it would not be a walk in the park?
They are. And look, they were at about 2.5% last year. They're headed to 3%. They would get there this year if we could do FMS, foreign military sales. But, that is been a constant pain in our allies' side. The countries come to us, say, we would like to buy weapons. And then we start like a 5 to 7 year death march to deliver that weapon system, way too late and frustratingly, now kind of out of sync with what the country's needs are. So they're trying to buy things. They're putting together billions of dollars of foreign military sales packages and trying to get the U.S. to process them so they can get to 3% or 4% or potentially even someday 5%. But until we get better, we're the only country that'll sell them weapons, period. No one else in the world, because they're scared of China. No one will sell them weapons but us. So we have to get better. And as bad, you mentioned the munitions problems for the United States military and maybe for selling to Europe. I would just tell you, Taiwan has experienced the exact same thing. 7 years to deliver Javelin missiles, 7 years to deliver Stinger manned portable air missiles. This is ridiculous.
Is that in the Pentagon or is that in the Treasury Department, Admiral?
Pentagon and State, and pick your choice on the two of them. They both have a lot of stink on them on this. And sometimes the host nation country complicates things, like they ask a question, and if you ask a question, you reset the problem. But Pentagon and State both have to clean themselves up, and Congress is ordering it.
Oh, good. Oh, that's some good news to end on. Admiral Mark Montgomery, enjoy your time in Taiwan. Thank you for joining me half the world away. I appreciate it. God knows what time it is there, but I appreciate your being up to talk to me. I hope you've enjoyed today. I hope Donald Trump holds a bunch of press conferences tomorrow because, as I said, it's a news desert from about now until Labor Day. But the president makes news. I want to make sure I played everything that you need to know. You got asked about Epstein, cut number 20.
Can you settle that? What was it about? What caused the breach?
That's such old history. Very easy to explain, but I don't want to waste your time by explaining it. But for years, I wouldn't talk to Jeffrey Epstein. I wouldn't talk because he did something that was inappropriate. He hired help. And I said, don't ever do that again. He stole people that work for me. I said, don't ever do that again. He did it again. And I threw him out of the place, persona non grata. I threw him out, and that was it. I'm glad I did, if you want to know the truth. And by the way, I never went to the island, and Bill Clinton went there supposedly 28 times.
Okay, and then cut number 16 I haven't played yet.
It's going to be working with the United States. We'll be helping with the food. You know, we have a lot of access to food. We got a lot of food ourselves, and we're going to bring it over there. We're also going to make sure that they don't have barriers stopping people. You know, you've seen the areas where they actually have food, and the people are screaming for the food in there. They're 35, 40 yards away, and they won't let them because they have lines that are set up. And whether they're set up by Hamas or whoever, but they're very strict lines, so we have to get rid of those lines. But we're going to be getting some good, strong food. We can save a lot of people. I mean, some of those kids that's real starvation stuff. I see it. And you can't fake that. So we're going to be even more involved. We did some airlifts before, some airdrops, and the people are running for it. And the Prime Minister is going to help us. They're very effective with that. You've done that before, and for many, they've done that for 100 years very well. So it's not very hard to do, actually.
And then cut number 13 on a trade deal with China.
Mr. President, your Treasury Secretary is meeting with Chinese trade.
Right now.
Right now. Have you received an update? Do you expect a deal when these talks are over, especially with the August 1st?
Yeah. No, they're meeting right now. And, you know, we have a good relationship with China. But China's tough. And like you're tough, you know, we're all tough, yes. But we're going to see what happens. We just concluded our deal with Japan. It was very good for everybody. We're making, you know, great deals. We're making deals that are good for us, but we want them to be good for everybody. It's important. It's sometimes I'll do something that I shouldn't do because it's not very important for our country, but it's very meaningful for the country on the other side. And I'll let them have that point because it's very important for them. So I don't know, but we've made a lot of deals in the last couple of months.
He has had a role, and hopefully it continues because it's good for America.